Welcome to the Millionaire Mindcast, where we broadcast weekly interviews with millionaire minds from across the globe to empower you on your journey of unlocking a rich and fulfilling life. It's time to unleash your millionaire within. Now, here's your host, Matty A.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Millionaire Mindcast, the show that focuses on all things mindset, money, and motivation to help you increase your income, impact, and influence in whatever space it is that you're passionate about. As always, I'm your host, Matty A. I'm grateful to be sharing a little bit of your precious time in your day with you today. I got a great interview and some awesome conversation with this week's millionaire worth modeling after, Mr. Charlie Martell. Charlie is from the UK. He's got a really badass accent, and this dude all around is a badass, which you'll learn. He's got a crazy story. He's an elite athlete. He is part of the special forces. He's over in Afghanistan right now. So in this interview, you're actually going to hear what sounds to be bombs. It's actually fireworks, but there was a few audio, difficulties being that he's overseas, so bear with me, but the content itself is amazing and his story is so captivating. I mean, I was just hanging on every single word. He actually journeyed as the first person to try and break the Guinness Book of World Records, one single rower from Japan all the way across the Pacific to San Francisco. Now, you can imagine, right? He had this plan. He had these goals and he was ready to take action, and he got into action on these goals. And yet, like the entrepreneurial journey, like life itself, not everything goes according to plan. Now, we have a choice on how we decide to respond to those obstacles and those challenges. And Charlie had some significant challenges, which he shares on his journey of being out on the open ocean by himself, some of the struggles that he ran into physically and mentally, and some of the amazing lessons that came out of that. So I know you're going to love this story with Charlie. It will be one that you'll want to be following along, because he shares something that is going to be happening after this interview airs, which I know I'm going to be following closely along as well. So for all those that are listening on iTunes right now, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're walking your dog, maybe you're just enjoying being outside and going for a walk yourself, be sure to check out the video interviews on YouTube, which we post and release weekly, so you can actually see some of the people that we're interviewing. It's always fun to see people like Charlie, who's over in Afghanistan right now, sitting in his office. We got all different kinds of people coming on the show that we want to make sure we're able to get that face-to-face interaction. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment, maybe share one of the videos. And if you are listening and one of our loyal subscribers in iTunes already and you haven't left a review, we'd greatly appreciate it. It helps us in iTunes land reach more people and make a bigger impact with the content that we're putting out on a weekly basis. So with that being said, we have one note from our sponsor before we dive into today's episode.
Have you ever wanted to tap into the minds of other successful millionaires and see exactly what things they are learning and implementing in their lives and businesses? Well, now you can by subscribing to Millionaire Notes, the exclusive monthly newsletter that delivers all the books, resources, insights, and strategies that the brightest millionaires from around the world are leveraging to build wealthier lives. Each and every month, the Millionaire Mindcast team and I compile the best tips, tools, and wisdom shared by my guests of the show, from all the mastermind groups I'm a part of, from the countless conferences I pay thousands of dollars to attend, and most importantly, the journals my millionaire mentors have given me access to. I've always been a big believer that success leaves clues, and by learning from other brilliant minds, we are able to model our way to a more rich and fulfilling life. And being that time is a limited and precious resource for all of us, we figured here at the Millionaire Mindcast team, we would do all the legwork for you, mine through all the data, and deliver you the most valuable golden nuggets that you can use and implement in your life each and every month. You don't have to do all the research. You don't have to pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars to attend the conferences and the events to gain access to this elite information for literally the price of a morning latte for just $5 a month. you can have all these delivered to your inbox. If you have any desire to increase your income, your impact, or your influence, then Millionaire Notes is for you. To receive your monthly edition, text Millionaire Notes, all one word, to 44222. There's no contracts. You can cancel at any time you like. To sign up today, all you have to do is text Millionaire Notes, all one word, to 44222. Let's dive back into the show.
Well, I'm excited to have an amazing guest on the show today, Mr. Charlie Martell. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, Matt. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. I can't complain about where I'm at according to where you're currently at right now. Where are you?
I'm in Baghdad in Iraq.
All right. So people are probably wondering, okay, what the hell is Charlie doing in Iraq and who is this guy? So for those that don't know who you are in your epic and amazing journey, why don't you kind of rewind a little bit and get us up to speed on what led you to where you're at right now?
Sure. My name is Charlie Martell and I'm working in Iraq. I'm running a bomb disposal and high-risk search program with a number of people, both British and American, all ex-military. So I got here because I spent a number of years in the British Army conducting bomb disposal. I specialised as a commando and an underwater diver. And now, after a period of time in the Army, I went off to do humanitarian mine clearance and use those skills in the civilian sector. So here I am putting those skills to use again in my knowledge and expertise within the bomb disposal sector.
Wow. So let's rewind a little bit even further than what led you into that particular niche? Because that's a pretty badass space, right? You got to be fearless. You're putting yourself in danger every single day. You don't know what's around the next corner. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, actually. And when you join the Army, you have a choice of which route you want to go down. And my route was along the lines of, what can I not do in civilian street, which I can do in the Army? And one was to go down the armoured route, to basically be in tanks and that sort of thing, or to go down the bomb disposal route. And I chose bomb disposal for some bizarre reason. And that's kind of where it all started. In hindsight, was it the right decision? Well, touch wood, I'm still alive and still got all my bits and pieces. So I think it's so far so good.
That's amazing, man. And, you know, for a lot of people who are not necessarily in that space, you know, the military side of life, I think is, you know, it's a very small population of people in general, and it's a very different lifestyle in general. But the individuals that I've come across and been able to, you know, engage with, build friendships with, they are very disciplined, intelligent, high performers, elite achievers. And I am curious to know a little bit more about your journey and all of the things you've learned along the way of becoming, you know, the level that you're currently at. So tell us how you got, you know, started and really started working your way up.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't put myself in any of those categories, but it's very kind of you to do so. It was, well, I mean, it's a long journey, you know, getting from joining the Army, and the last thing you imagine when you're in the Army is leaving and what to do next, and you know, how your life is going to evolve. For me, it was quite clear. I wanted adventure. I didn't get enough of that in the military. So I spent time working, doing humanitarian mine clearance, working for a well-known charity, which was almost advertised by the late Princess Diana in Angola in 1997, called the Halo Trust. I spent 5 years with them, working 6 months away, 3 weeks at home, 6 months away, 4 weeks at home for 5 years. And I think I probably faced more danger in the humanitarian sector than I did in the Army, because you'd have no support network at all. You are pretty much on your own, potentially in minefields every day. And in the case of being in Angola, facing a civil war. And over a period of time, you sort of climb the ladder of rank, if you like, and you go from being the guy on the ground to being the guy in the office. And here I am sat in the office. And I have to add that I'm not the guy out there every day risking my life. I've got 3 very good American ex-forces guys here, and I've got about 5 or 6 ex-British forces guys here doing the same kind of work. They're putting their lives on the line every day. But don't get me wrong, it's calculated risk. They're very disciplined, as you say, and they follow procedure. If we step out of line on one of those, something's going to go badly wrong. But what I'm trying to say is I've got some really quality guys here. As you say, they are disciplined, they are motivated, they are guys who could make it in the civilian sector in the UK and in the US, but they choose not to for whatever reason.
Yeah. What do you think? What would you attribute that discipline to? I mean, is it a necessity to survive? Is it a necessity due to the environment and the requirements and the standards of the military? Or I'm always just curious to know, like, why are, the military and those that, really sacrifice a lot to be in the military so disciplined, and how do they get to that space to do it consistently day in and day out?
Yeah, I think you say it's the discipline. You mentioned standards, and I think that's a really important point. You've got to have high standards in the military. You cannot get away from that. If your standards drop, a number of things drop. And it's the reason why various armies use discipline and standards as a basis, because if you achieve those as a minimum, you can rely on your neighbor, you can rely on your best buddy, whatever. I think the guys here, they enjoy the challenge. It's a very different operating environment to the likes of, let's say, Angola or Mozambique in this day and age. But I think it's partly enjoyment. The money isn't bad. It's not the best, but it's okay. You can earn a good living. The downside is being away from family, but the flip side of that is you are doing something good for the benefit of others. So I think it's a mixture of maintaining standards, the discipline learned from the military, enjoying the challenge, a bit of the pay and the time off. You get a good chunk of time off as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a combination of all of those.
What's been the biggest challenge for you along this journey? And I'm sure you've run into many, but what if you could pinpoint one or two big challenges personally that you've had to overcome? What would you say those are?
In the mine clearance world, being approached by a drunken soldier in Angola who wants a lift, you're unable to give him a lift because it's against the NGO policy. He's got a weapon, the NGO being the non-government organisation, non-profit organisation. He's got a weapon. We don't allow weapons in the vehicle. He decides to pull out a grenade and pull the pin. It's in his hand. What do you do? So my challenge was, what do I do? And I just put my foot down on the vehicle. We drove as fast as we could out of there. We turned around, drove back right past him, picked up some police and went back to pick this guy up, put the pin back in the grenade, and he was then taken to jail. That was a potentially life-changing moment. If this had gone wrong, we're talking fatalities. We're all in the vehicle. One grenade in the vehicle is going to cause a lot of problems. That was a challenge, more of a specific day challenge, whereas the challenges I'm facing here is, how do I keep the program running? How do I maintain value for money for the client, which in this case is an international organization? How do I keep the guys happy? They're away from home in a not particularly nice environment. I want to make sure they're getting paid on time. I want to make sure the food is okay. I want to make sure the conditions they're working in are as best as they can be. Sometimes that doesn't always work and something falls, and guys get upset. They don't want to be here. They get angry. They're doing 9 weeks on and 3 weeks off. It's a long time away. So the challenges here are very much more about management. And I think those challenges can probably be translated into business, because if you don't look after your guys, they're not going to look after you. You need to sort of invest a bit of time in them. And I think people talk about leaders and bosses. Anyone can be a boss, but not everyone can be a leader. And you've got to get that fine balance. And that's, I think, one of the challenges I'm finding here, especially with the different cultures of British and American. We speak the same language, but we might mean different things.
Right.
So those are the challenges I'm talking about.
So what would you say some of your big focuses as a leader yourself are on a daily basis to really accomplish and check off those boxes for your team?
My priority, as far as the company is concerned, is to look up to the company and make sure I'm ticking the boxes as far as they're concerned. My priority as being a leader here is to make sure my team is happy. If they've got a whinge or a gripe, can they come and speak to me? The bottom line is, yes, they can, but do they? Do they go and speak to their mate and get a different response? I need to try and be the guy they go to, and try and be not necessarily the best friend, but the guy that they can trust and go for a quiet conversation with. And you really got to, for me, try and get them on side and make sure that I'm there for them as much as they're here for me. It's almost like in a bizarre marriage, in effect. To be successful, you've got to confide in each other.
Such a great point. I think at the end of the day, relationships and communication are key, obviously, in personal life, in business, and really anything that we do. And to be able, as a leader, to carve out that space and take the time to make people feel welcome to come and talk and be heard, and know that what they're saying to you is actually, being taken accounted for is something that's I've found has been very, very important. And as leaders, oftentimes it's hard when we're constantly running a million miles a minute, worrying about everything we have on our plate. When you're a positional leader or you're in that, that spot where people are looking to you, you really have to make sure that you're being very intentional about hearing them, stopping, slowing down. Has that been a challenge for you? Or
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, and its relationships are critical. One of the key reasons why we are successful here is because it's not just a relationship between me and my guys and the guys to me. It's relationships between the authorities, whether it be the national authority, the Iraqi army, the Iraqi police, the client. All these people need to be valued. And if you don't value them, they're not valued back. And you've really got to sort of break down those barriers, be really personal with them. And, almost if you're in a business environment, get rid of the suit, take the tie off. If you want to go for a beer, go for a beer. But whatever it is that you've got that common ground with, go do it. Even if it's against your, I wouldn't say better judgment, but something where you're breaking down barriers, you're creating relationships, you are going to be successful. And it's one of the key points of here. One of the reasons why I was brought onto this project is to nurture relationships at every level, because without it, we are stuck, absolutely 100% stuck. Iraq is a country full of bureaucracy. Much like businesses in the West, in UK and USA, if you can get through some of that bureaucracy, and I'm not talking about corruption necessarily, I'm talking about friendships, relationships, then you're going to make a massive difference.
Mm. What kind of difference are you looking to make while being out there?
Me personally, it's to save some money for my family. I'm not putting this in any particular order. It is making a difference. You may see on the news the problems you're facing in Mosul with the internally displaced people returning from being out of their homes by ISIS, now returning. Their city the west side of the city is certainly flattened and destroyed. It looks like something out of some apocalypse film. To make a difference to those guys, to make sure they can come home to safe areas, make sure they have got running water, access to health and hygiene, access to schools again. If you have schools, then people will return and they want to be educated. Just to put a statistic out there, for the last few months, we've been working in Fallujah. We've put schools back into use, which has allowed 2,000 students to go back to school,
wow.
70 teachers to go back to work. Now, that's positive across the board. You've got people working, you've got students learning, and that's just one element. Just a few days ago, we've put a water treatment plant back into space to be rehabilitated so they can have fresh water again, things we take for granted. We're currently working on a power line, and there's IEDs underneath the power line. If we can put that back into use, then we've got electricity to hundreds of thousands of people. So all these little things make a massive impact. And that's kind of why I get up in the mornings, because I actually believe in what we're doing.
So you guys have a much bigger purpose than out there just making money, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you didn't believe in what you're doing, you wouldn't be here. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah. What do you envision for yourself as a leader in a space like this over the next few years?
Really good question. One of the things that's been I don't know if you can hear the banging outside. There's nothing nasty. It's just fireworks.
You're like, those are not bombs. It's just fireworks.
That's fine. If we were to expand, is there an opportunity to go up the ladder in terms of a country director versus a program manager? Is that something I want to do? I actually really quite like the level I'm at the moment. Would I want the extra stress and the hassle of being a country director? I'd probably relish the challenge, but that's some way away yet. So at the moment, I just want to expand the operation we're on, try and do more, more for the people here, and obviously do more with less, if that makes sense.
I'm curious to know a little bit about your daily routine, because before we dive into it, a lot of people don't know some of how much of a physical and mental athlete you are. And before you're over here, brushing it off like it's no big thing yet. I don't know how many people have attempted or accomplished what you've done, but I would love to dive into your routine a little bit and get a better idea of someone of your caliber who has discipline and has been very physically and mentally pushed to limits and beyond limits. What does your daily routine look like? And what would you say is some of the most important pieces of it that you just can't go without?
It's quite interesting, actually, because my routine here is actually fairly mundane, because I do spend a lot of the time behind the desk on Skype calls, believe it or not. I spend a lot of time in meetings. Just this morning was a multi-agency meeting with the various militaries, the British, the Americans, and the other people involved with mine clearance and bomb disposal. So the routine for me, it varies. Sometimes you're working an 18-hour day. The villa I'm in here, I've got a bedroom upstairs along with other guys, and I've got an office downstairs. So my commute is like 20 seconds. So not a difficult commute in the mornings. It's difficult to find time to go off and do, we've actually got a gym out the back. It's difficult to find time to get out there, but it's something I need to do daily just to take my mind off things and sort of almost focus on the niggles of the knees or the arms or the shoulders and the different pains, rather than looking at a screen all day long. So I'd say that the daily routine is different here to certainly what it was in 2012, which I guess we're going to come on to in a bit, where you get up, you do what you've got to do for the day, and it's the same for days on end. But the routine here is nothing awe-inspiring, let's say. But going out to see the teams on the ground, which I get to do not as often as I would like, that's something pretty special, because getting out of town is difficult. You're going through a number of checkpoints. You're on the open road. You've got fast vehicles coming towards you, not knowing if they're good guys or bad guys, going to blow themselves up. You arrive in Fallujah, you see the guys working, and it can be pretty emotional, actually, because you think, those are my guys and they're doing a great job and they come home safe. So, but like I said, my routine for the day is nothing compared to these guys.
Wow. What are some of the habits and disciplines that you admire in some of your guys who are just performing at a badass level day in and day out?
The discipline to get up every morning around 6 o'clock, get dressed, get in the car, get out. They check the equipment, they speak to the local guys, get onto task, be efficient on task. It'd be easy to do nothing and sort of be out of my line of sight, and they sort of don't really produce the goods. So to keep that determination, that motivation, and to face those challenges daily and not sort of falter. They don't tend to sort of come home and go, oh, God, I'm not sure if I can do that again. They just seem to get on with the job, yet they don't take it lighthearted. They don't sort of treat it with a pinch of salt. They really do take this seriously. We have a great meeting every evening where we discuss exactly what's happened today, and we discuss what we're going to do tomorrow. So there's a constant recap and a constant look forward as well. So we try and stay focused. I think that's one of the key things.
I love the fact that you guys take the time to stop and reflect as well as plan based on your reflections. I think that is it's something that I've seen from high performers in all different areas of life, is they are constantly engaged and aware of what just happened and what they want to happen moving forward, and how they use those clues from the past to kind of mold what the future or the present currently looks like. So great point. I love that you brought that up. I want to dive in a little bit to your crazy adventures and share with us what you did in 2012 and what the heck led you into wanting to do that in 2012.
Well, let's start with the reasons why, I guess. I think the first idea was put into my mind when I was still at school, so, a teenager, when there was a girl at school whose father had rowed across the Atlantic in 1966. If you hit the clock and go forward a number of years, in 2006, I've got myself a crew together of fellow Commando Royal Engineers, and as a team of 4, we got on a boat, which we bought ourselves, and we set off from New York, rowed out from, I think it was Liberty Island Yacht Club, past the Statue of Liberty, out onto the Verrazano Bridge, out into the Atlantic Ocean, and we rowed home back to England, which took us about 85 days. We lost a lot of weight, we raised a lot of money, we went to Guinness World Records, and that was where, for some people, it stopped. So for one of the guys, he said, I'm never going to row again. 2 of the guys said, we want to do something again. But I stepped off the boat and I said, I want to do the Pacific next. And then that was 2006. Fast forward to 2012, and I've got myself a solo ocean rowing boat built for me, and I decided to row from Japan across the North Pacific Ocean towards San Francisco, which is about 4,500 miles. I set off, everything was on plan, everything was prepared. We put an emergency response plan in place. We had all bases covered. I had the best kit you could buy, and everything looked really good. Rowing away, had some great days and some rough days. The great days, I'd see whales, I'd see dolphins, and I'd see maybe a ship. But in day 30, I got a phone call from my shore support guy, and he said, just to let you know, there's some bad weather coming away. I thought, that's okay, bad weather happens. But then he said, actually, it's a typhoon. Okay, it's a bit more serious. And that was tracking from the South China Sea, from the southwest of me up towards me, about 1,000 miles offshore in the Pacific. And 5 days later, it hit. I was within 100 miles of the storm. So by this time, I'd battened down all the kit. Everything was locked away, stowed away. And I was in the rear cabin, strapped in, just waiting for this nasty weather to come. And it came. Initially, I capsized 5 times, 6 times. And I've done some capsize training with the boat. So it's designed to capsize sideways. It's not designed to capsize another way. So if you imagine my pen as the boat, and I'm capsizing sideways 6 times over a period of time, no problem at all. Capsize number 7 was the big one. Basically, the boat was lifted up and down and then rolled back up the right way. And capsize number 7 is what damaged the boat. And this is where the story starts, because my first reaction, apart from feeling my head and going, oh, that hurt, and a few other expletives and feeling the blood, I looked at the cabin wall in front of me, and I could see a crack. I could see daylight through that crack. My first reaction is, what do I do now? What can I do to solve this? Can I fix it? Immediately, I can't fix it. What's the next step? So immediately got on the phone, a satellite phone, to the UK and said, I've got a problem. I'm not sinking, but the boat is damaged. So firstly, reassuring everyone I'm fine, but also telling them of the extent of the damage. The next action was to hit the emergency alarm, and basically that sends out an emergency beacon to both Japan as my local nearest Coast Guard station, but also my national one, so it goes back to the UK as well. Both those guys then called me and said, am I okay? And I said, I'm absolutely fine. The boat is damaged. The UK said, well, there's not much we can do. We'll hand over to Japan. Absolutely fine. And Japan said in a very specific manner, said, we will be with you at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. And this was Thursday afternoon. I thought, okay, not great. I've got to get through Thursday and through Friday and through Saturday, and they'll pick me up. But they're very specific about what time they'll be with me. 10 o'clock Saturday morning. So with a damaged boat, the weather was still with me, and I'm still capsizing. So bear in mind, we're talking, the pickup was about 40 hours away. So, 8 hours short of 2 days to get picked up. And at about 36 hours, I'm in my cabin, having capsized another 13 times. I've capsized 20 times now. I'm cold, I'm wet, there's water in the cabin. I've not eaten hot food for 30 or 40 or 35 hours. I'm pretty hungry, and I'm not enjoying life very much. My satellite communications have failed by this stage because there's not enough sunlight to keep the solar panels powered up, to keep the batteries powered, so I can't communicate properly. And the last words I said to my sister were, I'm scared, I'm frightened, in fact, I think the exact words were, which wasn't a great thing to say, because then the power cut off and all she remembers pretty much is I'm having a bad time, which wasn't great. And the point is, the emergency beacon was still flashing, which is good news. But the point is, if that beacon had been overboard and bobbing away somewhere else, miles away, no one would know where I am, how I am. So I was holding on to that beacon. So there was a bit of an issue where I needed to get from my cabin to the forward cabin through an open space while I'm capsizing. How do I do that? And this goes on to preparation and planning, and this is where I actually failed on the planning side of life. All my safety equipment was in the forward cabin. My spare satellite phone, my warm clothing, my life jacket, my flares, my spare GPS, all in the front cabin, including my survival suit and life raft. And
you were in the back cabin?
And I was in the back cabin. So I had to make the deliberate decision to leave my cabin, to step outside onto the deck. Bear in mind, there's a risk of capsizing, being thrown overboard, to get to the forward cabin, to get the items I need and get back to the stern cabin, the aft cabin. Great. I'm looking at the waves, I'm sort of judging it. I get outside and I'm really worried now. I open the top lever of the cabin door, and I aim to open the second one, but it's locked. Something on the inside has caused the latch to lock, so I cannot get into the forward cabin. So straight back into the rear cabin, and again, you say to yourself, what do I do next? How can I resolve this problem? Again, you can relate to the business. When things are starting to go wrong, they start to go wrong pretty rapidly, and you need to get a control. Think about what you're doing. be very deliberate, be very conscious of what you're doing, and try to relax, quite frankly. So I went back to the stern cabin and I found a little hand drill, little like an egg whisk kind of thing, but with a drill on the end. The plan was to go to the forward cabin, drill out the center of that handle, take the handle out, open the door, get the equipment, go back to the rear cabin. Perfect, happy days. I started drilling, the drill bit broke. Okay, what do I do next? Back to the stern cabin, get a second drill bit, go back outside. And it's halfway through, I'm thinking, this isn't going to work. This is really bad news. So I'm back into my stern cabin again, thinking, what do I do next? And I keep emphasizing, what do I do next? Because it's a series of steps. What if? How can I resolve the problem? The bottom line was I couldn't resolve the problem. So I had to manage with the equipment I had, which wasn't much. The sleeping bag was wet. The only thing I could do with that was wring it out, dry it out as best I could, put as many clothes on as I could, and try and generate some body heat and stay warm. And that's what I did. So about 36 hours later, I was trying to get some sleep, and bearing in mind I've got these hissing waves coming at the boat, and bang, and you're capsizing. Then you get another hissing wave and nothing happens, and it's constant sort of trauma almost, because you're waiting to be capsized and be banged against these waves, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And suddenly I hear this noise, and I think that's not normal. This is a really strange noise. So I switch on. I've got a handheld radio which I switch on, and I say, Japan Coast Guard, this is Ocean Rowing Boat Blossom. Bear in mind, this thing only works in line of sight. We're talking 3 miles or so. I get a booming voice coming through to me in a Russian accent, which I didn't recognize, saying, "This is MV Last Tycoon." And I'm thinking, am I going mad listening to this Russian dialect? Yes. This is not Japanese. So I step out of my cabin and I look around. There's a 42,000 ton ship half a mile away from me, just off 60 degrees off his port bow. And I'm like, this isn't Japan Coast Guard, but I'll take this help. And this is where the sort of the next phase kicks in, really, the sort of the recovery phase, which is it's a bit of a joke in itself. So they can't see me. I'm half a mile away. I'm a red, white, and blue Union Jack coloured British flag boat. I mean, the whole boat looks like a Union Jack, and they cannot see me because the waves are so big. I have one flare in the back cabin with me, which is always going to put there for collision purposes. And he said, "Can I put a flare up?" I put the flare up, and he sees me, and he basically stops his ship and he lets it drift onto me. So 42,000 ton ship is drifting down on top of me. And when we're side by side, they lower 2 ropes. They lower the ladder. I tie the boat off. I climb the ladder. I take my first few steps on the ship, which is pretty uneasy. And actually, before this, they said, "Do you want your boat to be recovered?" And I said, "Where are you going?" They said, "Vancouver." I said, no, it's fine. Thinking there'll be another boat in 5 minutes kind of thing. And no, of course I want my boat recovering. So I climb the ladder, the boat's recovered, and they do more damage to the boat being recovered, which I actually don't mind. But I'm back on the ship, and then we spend the next 2 weeks traveling towards Vancouver. And then the next phase starts, which takes us to next year. But I'll go on to that in a minute, I guess.
Wow. What a story, man. I mean, that is, one, to just trek on a journey like that and to set a goal that you're going to be was that the first person?
Yeah, the aim, and it still is the aim, to be the first person in history to row land to land from Japan to America. Still nobody has done it. I must acknowledge there has been 2 Frenchmen who have gone solo at different times from Japan to America, but it's my understanding that they both took assistance towards the end. So to step off from land on both sides is where the record is.
That's amazing. So you're going after a world record. Now I'm curious to know kind of some reflection on your journey. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. And I almost, you can apply this to really any new journey or trek that someone looks to take in life, right? They're either, there's the unknown, there is the beautiful, there's the bad. What was some of the biggest takeaways you had while being alone, while being faced with potential death? I mean, all the things that could have gone wrong, or some of the things that maybe did go right. What were some of your biggest takeaways from that experience?
I'll pick up on the 3 things then. One was the unknown, one was the beautiful, and one was being alone. The unknown, if humans didn't venture into the unknown, we probably wouldn't be where we are now. We can look at the moon, we can say, a number of years ago, and I'm talking thousands, we were living in caves. The only reason why we've got where we are is because we have gone out to the unknown. Now, we know that the Pacific is big, we know it's wide and it's potentially dangerous. But if we don't go and venture out there, we won't experience what it's actually like. And for me, the solitude was good in some respects, and that was to be at one with nature. And don't get me wrong, I'm in a man-made boat on an ocean, but to see dolphins every sort of 4 days coming up, saying hello, making silly noises, jumping around, absolutely fantastic. And you can never, ever try and replicate that. You can't even explain it, because it just puts you in an automatic good mood, because they are such amazing creatures. To see the whales as well, they're such, I wouldn't say docile is the wrong word, but they come across as being docile and calm, big beasts. And it's just utterly fantastic to see these creatures out there. To put a GoPro camera in the water and to see little fishes trying to get to the camera and see what it's all about, it's phenomenal. You can't replace that in anything, whether it's an aquarium or on TV. It's a life experience, basically.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the unknown, but it's also a bit of the beautiful there, to appreciate nature. I think if we're going to bring it back to something a bit more real, and that's people, I would suggest taking the time to possibly venture into the unknown. And I'm not talking about the Pacific. I'm talking, when was the last time you actually went for a hike? Or when did you go for a bicycle ride where there's nobody else, you're just on your own? Or even with a friend, somewhere you've not been before. Is it a challenge? It probably is, because you're sort of testing yourself. And I'm not talking about physical challenge for a race, but I'm talking of challenging yourself to venture into what you've not done before, try something different. So for me, there's the unknown and beautiful there. The alone thing was something, it's hard to explain. And the only way I'm going to do this, and this is absolutely no disrespect to those who suffer with bipolar disorder, I would say it's a bit like being bipolar. You suffer from the extreme highs and extreme lows for no reason at all. For 1 minute, you might be rowing along and suddenly you burst into tears, really, really sad for absolutely no reason. You don't know why. Something's triggered something in your mind. 5 minutes later, you could be laughing with tears in your eyes because something's triggered the happiness. And it's just a really weird phenomenon. Right. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. My philosophy of this is, leaving Japan to arrive in America, I felt I was going to go through extreme highs and extreme lows. And at a certain point on the Pacific, obviously past day 35, I felt I was going to come to a plateau where I was comfortable with sort of little bit high, little bit low. I hadn't quite reached that at the point of being recovered. So I think being alone, 35 days as long as I've been alone. And it was interesting. It was a few days, it was difficult and I'd be in tears, and some days absolutely loving it. There was one day which was immense. It was flat calm. You can't imagine the Pacific being like a bathtub. It was so calm. I got out of bed in the morning and I opened the door, stood on the deck, looked around, absolutely calm, no wind, no noise, no nothing. And suddenly in the far, far distance on the horizon, there's a splash and there's a group of dolphins playing. And it's at the point that the eye can't see any further kind of thing. You can just about see it on the horizon. Apart from that, I was entirely alone, or felt it certainly. And that was a really incredible, powerful thing for me to experience that. And it's, again, it's really hard to explain. You've got to experience it.
Yeah.
Do I like being alone? No. Do I like rowing? No. But you know what? It's fun and it's a bit of a challenge. And I know at the end it's worth it. I can raise some money for charity and I can feel really good about myself and hopefully get a Guinness World Record. So there's all these things combined into those three things of unknown, beautiful, and alone.
That's amazing. I think there's a lot of beauty in being alone. It gives us that solitude and that time to really go deeper into our own minds. And, I always remember a friend of mine saying, your brain's a scary place. Don't go there alone.
You're absolutely right.
And you were there for 35 days, but obviously there was a lot that you learned and that you were able to reflect on. How did you handle being in a situation that you were in, the fear of dying, the fear of not seeing your family again, just the fear in general of, can I do this? Because I look at your situation and go, man, there's so much that we could learn from your experiences and your wisdom that people, have in other areas of their life. So how did you handle the fear?
It's an interesting one. My biggest fear, believe it or not, wasn't the rowing across the Pacific. It was the end. It was how do I want my reception to be? Do I want just my family there? Would I want a big crowd there? Am I going to step off and step into the water or step onto the beach? Am I going to damage the boat? My fear was the end. It was also the fear of what's next. Is it going to be climbing Mount Everest? Is it going to be doing something, pushing limits again? So for me, it wasn't about being on the ocean. It was about the end of the challenge. And I think it's one of the reasons why I took on the Pacific in the first place, is because I enjoyed the Atlantic so much. I was looking for the next challenge. Now, since then, I've come to terms with the fact that this will be my last big challenge, I hope, where when I get to the end, it will be the start of the beginning of the future rather than the end of the challenge. And I think that was my fear at the time. And I've kind of resolved that now, that it's not the end anymore. It's the start. So I'm not fearful of the water. I find my comfort is in the water. If you want to take me out of my comfort zone, you put me on Mount Everest, because I won't be happy there. It's not the heights. It's the fact that I'm not a mountaineer. I'm a water guy.
Right.
So I feel completely alone with the water. And don't get me wrong, I have complete respect for the ocean, and I'm very scared of her. But at the same time, I've taken what I think are the suitable measures to reduce the risk of death or danger. And so I feel really comfortable on the water. I feel comfortable with my boat, who's effectively a lifeboat. It's got all my life support on board. So I feel that I've taken every measure possible to create a home from home in some respects on the water.
It sounds like, from what I'm hearing too, you've found a way to channel that fear and use it as energy or fuel to move you forward instead of running from it.
Absolutely, yeah. It'd be very easy to be negative on the ocean. I think you've really got to be positive about it, and you say use that energy. I was asked a while ago what kept me going, and believe it or not, the song by Kelly Clarkson, "What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger," on the ocean is a very, very powerful tune. And I listen to that at least once daily to keep me going, because you sing along, no one can hear you, that's great. But it's also, the words, if you listen to the words, it's just that phrase, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," is so important and so true.
That's awesome. I would have dubbed you as a Katy Perry or maybe a Lady Gaga person, but that's awesome. So then what's next? Obviously it didn't necessarily go the way you wanted it to go, which that's life, right? So most people will go, okay, that didn't work. Let's on to the next. They wouldn't take a shot at it again. What's your plan?
Well, I was fortunate enough that when I was recovered, my boat was as well. And so when we arrived in Vancouver, my boat was sent back to the UK, damaged as she was, and I was sent back to the UK as well. My boat was then repaired. A very kind friend of mine offered to pay for the repairs, so she was fully repaired and reinforced. So she's actually stronger than she was before. And then I aimed to go across the Pacific again in 2013. That didn't happen. Then 2014 and 15 and 16 and 17. And now finally, I've got a sponsor to take the burden of the majority of the finances. Obviously, it's a financial deal, but it's a sponsorship deal, which will allow me to go back on the Pacific next year. So I'm just going through the process now of getting the boat ready. So when I'm back home in April, I can start getting her looking her best and getting ready to do some training in July. At the end of this year, she'll be shipped out to Japan, and Pacific Part 2, which is Pacific 2018, will kick off around April time next year, weather dependent. We've learned from a few lessons. The boat's been reinforced, for example. There's a few tweaks we've made to the boat to make her slightly better. Strengthening's one of them. We've decided to do, like I say, a few things which we wouldn't have done before. So hopefully those lessons learned will help us get across the ocean. And I think just stepping into those lessons learned, if you put that back into business, and as you say, reflect on what you've done today and plan for tomorrow, your lessons are learned immediately. There's no delay. There's no waiting for an end of month report or a twice weekly report or whatever. It's done that day immediately. Solve the problem, move on. So in terms of 2018, I'm going to try again. So I leave Japan around April time, with the end of being in San Francisco around 5 months later, with a world record of being the first person ever to row solo unsupported across the North Pacific Ocean, land to land. That's the aim.
Insane, man. I'm excited to be following along and supporting all the people in the Millionaire Mindcast community. Definitely will want to follow along. So for those that do want to, either one, support your journey, I think you have a GoFundMe account to ensure that, you have all the necessary means and resources along this journey. Or if they want to follow you on YouTube or check out your videos or your website, what is the best way to check out Charlie Martell?
Well, you could just try Google, actually. There's a website, which is pacific2018.com. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. It's mostly as Age, which is gofundme.com/Pacific-2018. And any help. In fact, if you want your name on my boat for the small fee of $100, I can take your name across the Pacific Ocean. How's that?
That's pretty freaking cool. Well, sign me up for that, because I can at least say that I journeyed across the ocean with Charlie Martell on breaking a world record. I have no doubt that you're going to do it. And I just love the fact that, when most people fail, they use it as an excuse to just move on and not do that again. Whereas the people who really break through, they have that breakdown before the breakthrough and, shatter that glass ceiling. They use that failure as feedback, as fuel for the next opportunity of what not to do. And like what you said, you're coming back stronger. Your boat's stronger. You're more prepared. I think you talked about, what would you say the 7 Ps were?
Yeah, excuse my French on this one, but prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance.
Sounds like you have taken all the necessary means and reflections and people around you to make sure that you do not fall, victim to that. So it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm curious, if you're to leave our community with one piece of advice on trying something new or embarking on a journey that they may be a little bit fearful of and challenging themselves, what would you tell them?
It's a good question. And I would say, believe in yourself, first of all, and be positive. It is the old cliche of positive mental attitude. You can achieve it. For some people, getting off the couch and going for a 5K run is like an Everest for somebody else. In fact, for them, it is an Everest. For those who do Everest, then, 5K run is outside their comfort zone. So what I'm saying is, believe in yourself, set yourself a goal and achieve it. You can do it. And that's kind of what I'm doing with the Pacific. It's set yourself a goal. Don't give up. Keep on going.
You guys heard it from the man, Charlie Martell. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Damn, that was an inspiring story, right? I know I have a whole lot of respect for Charlie, and one, just trying to attempt this feat, and two, be crazy enough to try it again after. But I think it's just a great metaphor for life. When you get knocked down, you get back up, dust yourself off, and you keep on pushing forward. I mean, that's the only choice we have if we intend to take our lives, our businesses, our relationships, our fitness, our mindset, whatever it may be, to that next level, right? There is never anything worth having that's going to be easy. And Charlie showed that he has this goal and he is ready to take on any challenge that comes his way in pursuit of it. So I've got a lot of respect for Charlie, and if you do want to donate to his campaign or his GoFundMe account and support his mission and being a part of, actually being on his boat, due to any donations that you make, I know he greatly appreciates it. So we'll have those linked up in the show notes below. But for all those that haven't liked the YouTube channel or subscribe to us on iTunes to make sure that you don't miss out on any content, be sure to do so. And if you enjoyed this, share it with somebody. I mean, that's all I can ask, is to share this content with someone that you think it might make an impact in their life, or if you just enjoy it and want to get it out to more people. So for those that are looking for new book reads, this is something that we constantly get asked, hey, what's on your reading list this month? We have compiled the top 50 books that has been recommended by all our Millionaire guests and from all the people that we go to conferences with or mastermind with. You can get that yourself for free, sent to your email. All you got to do is text Millionaire Books, all one word, to 44222. Free PDF sent your way, and hopefully there's something on there that I know will impact your life as you march towards that millionaire milestone. So with that being said, thanks so much for making me a part of your week. Each and every week you keep coming back. If you're new to the channel or if you're new to the podcast itself, thank you. I know you got tons of listening and viewing options out there, and continue to invest in yourself and your wealth on your march to $1 million and beyond. Cheers, my friends.